They thought I was just a pretty face. They thought I would sit quietly, sign whatever they slid across the table, and walk out of that boardroom defeated. What they didn't understand was this: when you underestimate the woman who owns the one thing keeping your company alive, you don't just make a mistake. You create your own downfall. My name is Evelyn. I was 32 years old, and I was the youngest systems architecture lead Volonic Systems had ever hired. Not that anyone seemed to care anymore. To them, I wasn't the brain behind their billion-dollar technology. I was just the woman in the pencil skirt who made board presentations look polished. The morning everything changed started like any other. I arrived at the office at 7:30 a.m., coffee in one hand, laptop bag over my shoulder. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Seattle skyline stretched under a heavy gray sky, clouds hanging low like they always did. I loved that view. I had earned it. 6 years of 80-hour weeks. Missed holidays. Breakthroughs that rewrote entire systems. Code so deeply embedded that nearly everything Volonic touched depended on it. Project Astra wasn't just a product. It was my work. My architecture. My patents. That was when I saw him. Nathan Cole was standing inside what used to be the old CEO's office, hands in the pockets of a suit that probably cost more than my first year's salary. The new CEO's son. The heir apparent. He looked like someone who had inherited confidence instead of building it. Perfect hair. Sharp jaw. Eyes that scanned the engineering floor like he was evaluating property, not people. "That's him," Marcus whispered beside me. Marcus was my senior developer and one of the few people I trusted. Nathan Cole. Word is his dad's grooming him to take over operations. Nathan's gaze landed on me. Slowly. Deliberately. From my face, down to my heels, then back up again. He smiled, and something in my stomach tightened. It wasn't professional. It was possessive. "Evelyn," he said as he approached, his voice carrying farther than it needed to. "I've been reviewing the organizational charts. You're the systems architecture lead." "That's correct," I replied, keeping my tone neutral and professional. He stopped just inside my personal space, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "Interesting," he said. "I expected someone more technical." Marcus stiffened beside me. I felt the familiar heat of anger rise, but I'd learned long ago that reacting emotionally was exactly what men like Nathan wanted. "My appearance has no correlation," I said calmly, "with my ability to design the AI systems that generate roughly 90% of this company's revenue." "AI systems," he repeated, as if tasting the words. "Right. Project Astra. I'll be taking a special interest in that. We're planning some restructuring." That word landed hard. Restructuring. Corporate shorthand for destruction. "The Astra architecture is built on proprietary frameworks I developed," I said carefully. "Any changes would require extensive technical review." "I'm sure we'll figure it out," he interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "Pretty girls like you shouldn't worry about the business side. Focus on making things look good for demos. That's what you're really here for, isn't it?" The silence that followed was absolute. Keyboards stopped clicking. Conversations died mid-sentence. Marcus looked like he was one comment away from losing his job. I smiled. It was the kind of smile you develop after years of being underestimated. Polite on the surface. Sharp underneath. "Mr. Cole," I said, "I hold 6 patents on the core technology Astra runs on. I wrote the foundational code. I designed the neural architecture your father is staking this company's future on. So when you say I'm here to make things look good, I assume you mean the $800 million valuation my pretty little algorithms just earned in our last funding round." His face flushed. "Good. If you'll excuse me," I continued, turning back to my desk, "I have real work to do." The kind that requires more than a trust fund and a last name. Nathan leaned in as he walked past, his voice low, breath hot against my ear. Be careful how you talk to me. Things are about to change. And I have a very long memory. After he left, Marcus exhaled slowly. Evelyn, that guy is bad news. I didn't answer. I was already pulling up my patent files, backing everything up to my personal drives. Call it paranoia if you want. I called it instinct. Because men like Nathan Cole didn't fight fair when they felt threatened, and he hadn't looked at me like a colleague. He'd looked at me like an obstacle. 3 weeks later, I found out exactly what he meant by restructuring. It was almost midnight. I was still in the office, debugging a critical update, when an alert flashed across my screen. Unauthorized access. My code. My files. Someone was inside the core Astra architecture through a backdoor I didn't recognize. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I traced the credentials. They belonged to a junior engineer. Someone without clearance. I pulled up the security cameras. There he was. Tom Brennan. Hunched over his desk, typing like his life depended on it. Standing directly behind him, arms crossed, watching every keystroke, was Nathan Cole. My blood went cold. I started recording everything. Every file copied. Every timestamp. They weren't reviewing the system. They were extracting it. Years of my work. My intellectual property. Being stolen in real time. The next morning, I was called into an emergency strategy meeting. The room was packed. Nathan. His father, Charles Cole. The board. Lawyers I didn't recognize. Faces that smelled like money and bad intentions. We're accelerating Astra's launch, Charles announced. We need to eliminate dependencies. Nathan slid a document across the table. We need full ownership of all critical technology. I looked down. A transfer agreement. My patents. All of them. For a one-time payment that wouldn't even buy a modest house in Seattle. These patents were developed independently, I said, pushing the document back. They're licensed under existing terms. Terms change, Charles replied smoothly. Nathan smiled. We've been developing alternatives. That was when everything clicked. The late-night access. The stolen code. They weren't building alternatives. They were trying to copy what they didn't understand. That would be patent infringement, I said quietly. Charles's expression darkened. Are you threatening us, Ms. Evelyn? I'm stating facts. When the meeting ended, I didn't go back to my desk. I called my attorney from the hallway. They're stealing my work, I said. And I have proof. Her voice sharpened instantly. Then this just became a war. And they still thought I was just a pretty face. By the time I reached my desk, my hands were steady but my mind was already 10 moves ahead. I forwarded the screen recordings, access logs, and timestamps to my attorney, Rachel Monroe, with one line, they crossed the line. Her reply came minutes later. This isn't corporate drama, Evelyn. This is criminal. Lock everything down. I didn't hesitate. I backed up every repository, every design document, every email thread proving authorship. 3 encrypted locations. 1 off-site. 1 with Rachel. 1 I never accessed from work. If they wanted a war, I would make sure I had receipts. 72 hours later, Nathan made his next move. An urgent meeting invite hit my calendar at 8 a.m. sharp. Project Astra. Mandatory attendance. When I walked into the boardroom, the air felt heavier than usual. Charles Cole sat at the head of the table, composed, smiling the way predators do when they think the trap is already closed. Nathan sat to his right, smug, confident. Lawyers line the wall like furniture. We need to resolve the Astra dependency issue today, Charles said. The launch window is closing. Nathan slid a folder toward me. We're offering a clean solution. You assign all patent rights to Volonic for a one-time payment. We move forward. Everyone wins. I opened the folder. The number was insulting. Not just low. Disrespectful. These patents were created before my employment and licensed under strict terms, I said evenly. You can't force a transfer. Nathan leaned forward. We don't need your cooperation anymore. We've built redundancies. That was the moment I knew they were bluffing. Real redundancies would have shown up in the codebase. I would have seen the architecture diverge. What they had done instead was try to steal and replicate my work, and they'd failed. You accessed my protected systems without authorization, I said quietly. I have video proof. If Astra launches using copied derivatives of my technology, damages start at $500 million. Silence. One of the lawyers shifted uncomfortably. Charles's smile thinned. Are you threatening the company? He asked. No, I replied. I'm explaining reality. When I stood to leave, Nathan's voice followed me. The launch is in 6 weeks. This gets resolved one way or another. Back at my desk, I executed my countermeasure. A security update. Subtle. Legal. I added authentication layers that only I could fully authorize. Nothing broke. Nothing slowed. But if someone tried to alter ownership, permissions, or replicate core systems, the architecture would lock itself down. Like changing the locks on a house you designed. They could live there. They just couldn't claim it. Tom Brennan found me an hour later, pale and sweating. I can't access half the modules, he said. Nathan's furious. Good, I replied calmly. Tom, you accessed restricted systems last Thursday night at 11:45 p.m. That's a federal offense. Walk away now, keep quiet, and I won't press charges. He didn't argue. He ran. By Monday morning, the company was buzzing. Rumors spread that I was being pushed out. My keycard stopped working for 10 minutes before security restored it. My email lagged. Childish intimidation tactics. I ignored all of it and met with my team instead. I need full documentation on every system by end of day tomorrow, I said. Every dependency. Every process. Timestamp everything. Marcus met my eyes. If you're gone, Astra's dead. Exactly, I said. Make sure everyone knows it. That night, my phone lit up. Unauthorized access attempt. Not the office. My home network. The IP traced straight back to Volonic. I sent the logs to Rachel. Her response was instant. This is harassment. Want law enforcement? Not yet, I typed back. Let them dig deeper. The next morning was an ambush. I walked into the executive conference room to find the entire board, 3 external attorneys, and a PR consultant pretending to take notes. What do you want, Evelyn? Charles asked, dropping the act. Fair compensation for my intellectual property, I replied. And your son removed from any oversight of Astra. Nathan exploded. You're holding us hostage. No, I said. I'm holding what's mine. The lead board member, Margaret Liu, finally spoke. What are your terms? $500 million for exclusive rights, I said. Or $50 million annually for non-exclusive use. The room erupted. Accusations. Threats. Panic. I let them spiral. If you refuse, I added calmly, I revoke the license for breach of contract and sell to your competitors. That part was a bluff. But it worked. They asked for time. I gave them 48 hours. Nathan tried one last tactic. He cornered me in the parking garage that evening, voice low, eyes wild. No one will hire you after this. We'll make sure of it. I smiled. I don't need to be hired. Monday arrived like a storm. 30 minutes before my scheduled call with Volanix's biggest competitor, Charles burst into my office. 500 million, he said. We'll pay. The price is now 550, I replied. You delayed. Nathan shouted. Charles silenced him with a look I'd never seen before. Disgust. The call came in right on time. On speaker. A competing firm offered 450 million and a leadership role. Charles signed within minutes. By that evening, the wire transfer cleared. $550 million. The largest patent acquisition in the company's history. Nathan was removed from Astra entirely. Reassigned. Exiled. The launch the next morning was flawless. Astra performed beautifully. Stock surged. Headlines praised Volanix's visionary investment. At 9 a.m., I sent one email to the entire company. Acknowledging the acquisition. Thanking the team. Claiming nothing but the truth. 3 weeks later, I resigned. Charles begged. Offered titles. Equity. Cars. Promises. I declined all of it. I launched my own company instead. With better technology. Better culture. Better people. Marcus joined me. So did several others. Within 6 months, we hit $1 billion valuation. Volanix stock dipped the day the news broke. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the moment Nathan first looked at me like I was disposable. Like I was decoration. He thought I was weak because I was beautiful. Replaceable because I was a woman. Controllable because his father owned the building. He was wrong. My name is Evelyn. And this is what happens when you corner the person who built your future and mistake her silence for surrender. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated or pushed aside at work, drop a comment below. Let me know where you're listening from. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experiences. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud. It's knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less.